Today we're talking about the Cheshire Cat tattoo design. Welcome back. You may have seen this tattoo design in the Using Freehand video, but in this video I get to show you all the tricks and techniques that help make this one design possible. And before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Our client would like a Cheshire Cat tattooed on her back shoulder blade, and she would prefer the tattoo to have Tim Burton vibes. So to this end, we decided to have stripes all through the design, and for the cat to have a curling tail and make it sort of look like a worm. So there'll be no arms or legs visible, making this design sort of surreal. And here, I'm doing a very bad thumbnail of a cat from memory. I ended up doing a few more thumbnails before getting started, but this one was by far the worst, so I thought I would share it in my video. And even though it looks like a wet muskrat, our thumbnail does show our basic pose. This is a unique part of the body as it allows for different facing, and we decided to have our design facing out. Our client gave us some pictures to help describe what they're looking for, but for the purposes of this video, I'll blur them out because I don't own these images. I also took some time to research some open source and historical images, and I spent some time reading up on the personality of the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland, as that would help when drawing the expression of the character in our design. To get even more ideas for our design, I generate a bunch of images, and as usual, these images have pretty janky details and composition, but I do find a few great ideas in here, especially with the lighting and shadow. I also realize here that it's possible to have a Cheshire Cat look too intense, like these guys, so I know I'm going to have to dial that back a bit. And now we're ready for our drawing. I'm going to be freehanding this drawing on a plain sheet of printer paper, and here I'm using a dull pencil with a hard lead. It's critical that you don't go too dark in the beginning, and this pencil really helps keep things light. The goal is to get everything sketched in, and once the entire composition is on paper, I can then go in with a slightly darker pass with the same pencil to add weight to certain lines. But just take your time in these early stages and slowly build up your shapes. Freehand drawing with pencil and paper is becoming a little more rare nowadays since there's lots of other ways to design your tattoos. These include using Procreate on an iPad or using Photoshop with a tablet, and those are both things that I do all the time. The truth is, these methods are rising in popularity because these are great options when designing a tattoo, and they have some real advantages over traditional freehand. And the same thing can be said for researching a tattoo. There are great historical images available, but there's also image generation. And personally, I end up using a bit of everything when I'm working. I feel it's worth taking the time to learn everything, and then you can just use whatever techniques you prefer. In my case, I just end up using all of them. Here, you can see the design starting to take shape, and you'll notice that each pass will get a little darker. A lot of this penciling that we're doing here will either disappear or blend into the darker shading once we do that at the end of the drawing. I tend to feel a lot of pressure that I'm going to screw something up when I'm drawing, and I find this pressure can really slow me down. But keeping things light and sketchy while I figure out a drawing allows me to relax a bit, and this is a good thing because I tend to do my best work when I'm feeling I'm not going to wreck everything. A critical thing that a lot of artists forget to do when they're drawing their composition is to block in these large areas of shading. A design isn't just made of lines, it's also made of shading, and those fields of shading have a certain weight, and it's really difficult to see how your drawing is going without seeing that weight. So make sure to take the time to do a very light pass with the shading as well, and you'll get a much better look at how things are going. And you really want to do that because this is the best time to be making changes to your artwork. I'm now going over the entire piece with my darkest pencil and using it as a liner. I'm trying to make good choices, and I'm adding a lot of definition to the piece, and this will make the artwork feel a little more like a coloring book. But it's important that you take some time and make good choices here, because these are some of the first details that you'll be able to see in your final artwork. And once I have my line work started out, I can go back in with my first pencil and begin to block in an even darker layer of shading. This is the stage of the drawing where I can start to relax a little. This character that we have looks a bit more like a Cheshire Cat and not so much like a Cheshire Muskrat, and this is a huge relief. A lot of what I'm shading here is the middle values, and this should be the stage that takes the most time. Middle values make up the majority of the shading in a piece. They can be easily darkened to create a darker value, and they can be easily erased to make a light value, or to become negative space. For me, the battle is won or lost with the middle value, so this is where I spend most of my time. I should also mention that I try to complete a shading pass over the entire drawing before moving on to the next pass. And this is because all the shading is in relationship with each other. That means if one part is made darker or lighter, then that will affect the surrounding parts. So I try to look at the image as a whole and build up the entire piece as I go. But when I get to the darkest values, things change a bit. There is something that you always have to be aware of when drawing in freehand, and that is smudging your pencils. You've heard me talk about this before. The hard lead that you start off with is not so bad as it doesn't smudge very much, but the soft and dark lead can really make a mess. So to prevent myself from turning this entire piece into a blurry mess, I tend to do my darkest shading from top to bottom and try to finish one section at a time. Now, spoiler alert, I do actually end up smudging this artwork quite a bit, because I end up jumping around the artwork a lot. But you have to do that sometimes. All the shading is in relationship, and sometimes you just have to build things up that way. The tools that I end up jumping around with the most are my mechanical pencil and the mechanical eraser. A mechanical eraser has a very thin tip that gets into some very small areas and is perfect for carving out highlights in negative space. And the mechanical pencil is the perfect tool for bringing sharpness into the shading. Here you can see me adding these big fields of black and then going over these areas with big layered fields of middle value. And this is pretty much how I would tattoo this shading as well. For me, I find the practice of drawing with a pencil to be the closest analog to using a tattoo machine, but with one main exception. When I'm drawing, I can jump around from place to place in my artwork, but I try to not do that when I'm tattooing. Skin will swell and it becomes more sensitive as you work on it, so you'll get much happier clients if you just finish one section at a time and then move on to the next. And that means you have to set up a few machines to get some different needle groups going, but if you want your clients to sit in the chair a little longer, then it's well worth the effort. Here, I'm just working out some of the last fields of middle value with my hardest pencil, and after that is done, I'm just putting on some finishing touches. And I begin to use a lot more mechanical pencil and eraser in this last stage of the drawing. I also start to add some of the whiskers to the cat as well, and I take some time to erase a few thin areas of negative space where the whiskers pass over some of the dark fields of shading. This will add a little more work to the final tattoo, but I think it's little details like this that make all the difference. Drawing the Cheshire Cat was a challenge, but I'm glad we got to freehand this design. Of course, it helps knowing that we have a few tools at our disposal to make small changes once we scan this artwork into the computer. And something else you have to look out for is working on the drawing too much and overdoing it. And I feel I'm right on the edge of that, so I decide to call it done. To get this drawing in the computer, I scan it, but you can also just take a photo of your artwork as well. I use the burn tool to go over the art and darken a few spots just to balance things out. You could also go into levels and change the values there, but I decided to do things by hand. I then do the same thing that I do with all my freehand drawings, which is to flip the artwork horizontally. When you do this, it becomes really easy to see mistakes in the proportions and in the composition. So I go over the entire piece with the Liquify tool and move a few things around. This works the same whether you're using Procreate or Photoshop, and these are just small changes, but they're worth doing. To get a better look at how the artwork is going, I turn the art into a multiply layer and place it over our blank. And here we can experiment with some ideas for placement. We want to stay on this side of the center line and don't want to go too close to the armpit. I also noticed at this stage that we could make the bottom part of the cat a little rounder to match the curve of the tail. So I make a quick change with the Liquify tool. We have come a long way with this design, but I just wanted to take a look back to where it all started. This little muskrat will forever have a place in our hearts and will never be forgotten. And with that, we have our completed artwork and a big presentation to show our client during their next consultation. And that is the first draft of the Cheshire Cat tattoo design. Hey, if you got anything out of this, then help us out by hitting the like button and subscribe to our channel. We come out with new videos often, and make sure to hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. And if you're serious about creating the best art possible for your tattoos, then go to tattoodesignschool.com and check out the masterclass. This is everything I wish I knew when I was first starting out, and it will push you to create artwork you didn't think was possible. This is the perfect investment in your tattoo career, so check out the masterclass at tattoodesignschool.com. But most importantly, share this video with the person you know who's interested in artwork and tattoos. And we'll see you in the next one.